was something actually that David Davis briefly mentioned. Tony Boto has the question.
Yeah. Do you agree with Boris that greed is good?
This was the speech, the Thatcher speech, the Margaret Thatcher lecture that Boris Johnson made. Now, it goes back to the heart of the economy and, indeed, of education we've been talking about. This is the quote. "Some measure of inequality," he said, "is essential for the spirit of envy and keeping up with the Jones that is, like greed, a valuable spur to economic activity." True or false? Mary, what do you think?
I think neither true nor false. I think it's just another example of us being rather dim and handing Boris publicity on a plate. You know, Boris, he says something kind of arguably controversial and he gets thousands of column inches. He then comes back and says, well, actually, if you read my speech, I didn't quite say that.
But he said exactly what I quoted.
But if you put it in context, it was rather different. And I read the speech in full, and he said that, and he said other things, which he then puts in the Scotsman or Scotland on Sunday and gets another 10,000 column inches. And in some ways, we all have a good time. He goes on your programme.
OK, can you address the issue? Is it true or false what he said? That inequality, envy, keeping up with the Joneses and greed is a spur to economic activity, and a valuable spur.
Ah. delete the valuable, and in some cases, I have no doubt that greed is a spur to economic activity. I have no doubt. Whether it's a valuable spur, I would have much bigger cause to doubt. In fact, I think it's not valuable. But anybody who says that greed wasn't a spur to some forms of economic activity...
David Davis.
Boris used to work on my team when I was Shadow Home Secretary, which is why I've got so much grey hair.
You should see his.
He was an interesting handful. But Mary's got a point. But Mary's also a historian, you know, and if she thought back, she'd think of Henry Ford, Edison, Vanderbilt, all the people who made the great Industrial Revolution. They weren't just doing it for fun. They were doing it because they wanted to make a fortune, and they did. So the point that Boris was making, and I'm going to come back to the other bit that you've not read out, David, the point he was making is this is a driver. It actually makes economies run. It makes companies go bigger. It makes people create wealth for everybody, not just for themselves. But what he also said, I think, I have to do it from memory, I don't have the thing in front of me, but he said something like, you know, I hope the Gordon Geckos of the city of tomorrow will give back and create more. And he made the point. Of course he recognised that there were a problem with unfettered greed doing things that aren't necessarily socially useful, to quote Adair Turner, I think. But he also made the point that it's necessary for people who are at the top of society to give a lot back. And that was really the point of the whole speech.
Nick Ferrari.
Boris clumsily put, which is ridiculous for a man of his level of education, although he didn't do very well in the IQ test, but there is nothing wrong with keeping up with the Joneses. And in fact, the audience has brilliantly brought it round in full circle, because it's almost as we talked about competition at the start, and the young lady in the fourth row back there and the young gentleman over there, you've expressed how important it is. That is why, as and when you have children, you want your children to do better than you. That is what it's all about. That is what drives it, and that is absolutely wholesome and correct.
Rachel.
Well, you know, you talked about what you want your children. You want your children to do better than you. They want them to be successful. You want them to be happy. But I don't want my children to be greedy. And I don't think greed is a virtue. I think it is a vice.
Take it in the whole, though. Take what he said in the whole.
Yeah, well, the question was from Tony, is greed good? I don't think greed is good, but wanting to do well, to create wealth and to create new things, of course that is. You know, and you mentioned people like Henry Ford, and if you look at some of the most successful business people, whether it be Gates or Ford or Rockefeller or Carnegie, they were incredibly successful in business, but they also gave a huge amount back as well. And that's because they weren't greedy, they were successful, but they also cared about the places where they worked.
30 seconds left, Danny Alexander.
I'd say that sometimes common sense is important too, as perhaps Boris has learned this time. I think that
you are an optimist, aren't you?
Maybe I am. I am an optimist, as it happens. Yes, I am. But I think that what was so wrong about what Boris seemed to be saying was that there's a group of people in our population who should always be kept down, and some people are always going to succeed.
He didn't say
and I want a stronger economy in a fairer society where everyone has the chance to get on in life. You want to give everyone the opportunity. Of course, people are going to succeed to different levels according to their abilities and their education and their effort and their application. But you want a society where everyone has the chance to get on. That's what we should be and are working to achieve. And what's been perhaps a somewhat gloomy programme, I'd just say that as a country we have some brilliant institutions, some brilliant people, some brilliant businesses, and I really do believe that we can succeed in that way.
OK. I'm sorry, we've got to stop there. Our time's up. We're going to be in Swansea